Um, welcome to the Woman in Sports Summit. I'm so excited for today. It's going to be an amazing day. I'm your host, Logan. I'm a women's sports content creator, and I cover pretty much everything about women's sports, from the news to the players, the wins, the games, the leagues, the drama, everything. And today we're going to be joined by some other amazing women in sports, and we're starting the day off with the amazing Ari. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm just so proud of you, Logan. Look at you glowing. You're hosting this. This is great. This is great for us.
Thank you. Do you want to start off by introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so my name is Ari Chambers. I've been in the women's sports space over a decade now, and then I founded Highlight Her, which is Bleacher Report's women's platform, about 5 years ago. And I am very known for coining the phrase, the WNBA is so important, but I am women's sports everything, just like you, Logan. I love the sport and culture aspect of it, as long as it's intentionally on the women's side.
Yes, of course. Always women. I love how you're focused on the women's side with everything you do as well. You've been on such big stages and
Mhm.
women, which I absolutely love. But we have seen some huge wins and success and major things happening these most recent years. But I want to
Mhm.
know, what has it been like to be in this industry for so long and see women's sports rising as we know it always would, but on such a public platform?
It's really cool to witness because as much fighting as you do for something to grow, when it actually happens, it's kind of surreal. It's expected because the product has always been great. But if you take away the novelty of it, if you take away the new hot commodity of it, women's sports has now been around for so long. Like Title IX, we just celebrated the 50th anniversary. We're coming up on what, 28 years of the WNBA. It's becoming something that's the norm. And I think that the norm of it is appealing because now we don't have to fight a generation that isn't accustomed to women's sports. Now you have a generation that has only known women to play in the pros in the United States. And so it's really it's a turning point. Especially the numbers are showing that people want it. And that was the hesitation with bigger companies with investment. And now I always say this every panel I'm on, the cost of inaction is greater than the risk. And so now the companies are understanding that their return on investment is there. But as a fan of the game, games are now more accessible. The stories are more told because they're more compelling because there's more storytellers out there. The enthusiasm behind the game has just shifted. It's just been a pleasure to watch, a pleasure to witness, and I hope that when we get past the whole, oh my God, this is great, that people stay tuned in. I hope that this isn't an anomaly, that people are locked in because it's great. It's lit over here.
And we saw that especially with March Madness this
Mhm.
year. It was absolutely insane. I mean, this is only my second full year being in this industry, but to be there and also see the difference just in the 2 years that I've been in this industry between the first year where it was you could barely find the championship on TV to this year where it's all everybody was talking about. That is something so exciting. And what do you think caused that, A? And B, do you think it was the rise of players really showing their personalities, or do you think it's just like a whole women's basketball on the rise?
I'm going to take it left field here. I think it's the parody of the game. Beforehand, when I was in school, actually a little after I graduated, there was such UConn dominance. And I love dominance. I love sheer dominance. I love that program. I think that Gino Ariema is a genius. But if you know somebody's going to win every year, it gets to be like, okay, we already know what's going to happen. Once Morgan Williams hit that shot and knocked UConn out, it opened up the door, gave other programs the confidence that they can win a national championship. And since then, um, the excitement has been rising. The predictability has been chipping away, and you pair that with players who are coming up that aren't afraid to be fully themselves, that can own their brands, that are exposed on social media without fear of getting their uniform taken away, their jersey taken away. You pair the parody with the personalities, and you get a great product. You get great consumption, and that's what we're seeing. I have seen year over year. I mean, sad COVID years in San Antonio when we had the cardboard cutouts, but you've seen year over year grow. It be more mainstream. It's more normal, and people have the confidence to fight for that national championship. it's the confidence from the players, it's confidence from the programs, it's the unpredictability for how March Madness is going to go. How many upsets do we see each year with the women's side in particular? It's crazy. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, especially with players having the autonomy of where they're going with the transfer portal. Now, I have thoughts. I love the freedom that they have, and they don't have to stay at a program if they're not comfortable. But I have a mixed opinion about that. But I think that it's great that players can orchestrate their own pathways and create this drama, this free agency of the collegiate teams, if you will, and create discussion around that.
Yeah, I love that aspect. And that kind of translates over to the draft as well, the WNBA draft, which is
Yeah.
just after the finals. You were there, and the viewership numbers, it was the highest, and it was either the most viewed or the highest in years. And I love how everything kind of tracked from the finals to the draft. Was that the atmosphere at the draft? How did it feel to be there? What were the players like? How did that whole thing go down?
Oh, 1,000%. And I think that the second that we can capitalize off of that March Madness momentum, the second that the WNBA will remain so like commercially dominant. And I think that we're getting there. Their marketing, as much as people online try to talk about the WNBA, they are really figuring it out on how to market. You see it in the record numbers on social media. You see it with the players. I don't know if you all have been able to witness the rookie class or the draftee class saying, hey, it's not that bad here. So we have to erase the narrative of, like, I understand wanting better. If you love something, you're critical of it, but acknowledge the progress that's been made, and really take heed to the fact that there are people. It's a new wave. It's a new refreshing wave of people in the office that are trying to push the game forward, and the new class knows that. So that enthusiasm was present, that excitement going into the league. A lot of times, the outside fan could be like, oh, their salaries are this, that, and the third. They're the highest paid women's sports league in the United States. And so the rookies are looking at it like, I'm coming off of NIL, I can add to my salary right there, and then I can fulfill my dreams in this. And so that was the energy that you saw. You saw the coaches proud of their kids. You saw the athletes really excited to fulfill their dreams. The atmosphere was great. I'm a stickler for good design. I love the color scheme of the draft. I live for it. And there's like a nice little meet and greet area where the players are roaming, the coaches are roaming, the fans are not the fans, like the family members and the influencers are roaming, the media is there too, and it's just like a nice little reception area. Then you have photo booths, you have hat making activations, and you could just like have fun. And I was able to sit down with all 15 of them and really kiki and like get their little stories out. So it was fun.
I saw your interview with Alexis. I think that went pretty viral. That was just amazing. It was, I think with her especially, it was so cool to see her come off of a championship and then go straight to the draft. And her personality is there as well. And you mentioned NIL, which kind of goes with personality, and Angel Reese. But the highest paid NIL athletes are women. Women have been dominating NIL throughout many sports. Like you have Livy Dunn in gymnastics, you have the basketball players, I think softball is doing really well, and volleyball. What do you think the future of NIL is like for female athletes?
The same as the present. It's going to be dominant. We're going to dominate it. I think that it's super dope that Liv. Okay, let me just give you a rundown on Livy. Livy's injured. Like, I'm talking about like 2 labrums and an ankle injury. Like, the girl has poor baby. Like, in the national championship, she was warming up. I was like, oh, she's gonna go, but she was 7th in rotation. That means 2 people would have had to drop. But I mean, KJ dropped. Anyways, long story. But Livy was able to still make money based off her personal brand because she's that popping, though she didn't step foot on the mat this season. And that is the advantage. You can really milk your personal brand. You can create the entity that you want to create and capitalize off that, like, regardless of your circumstance in college. And that's to say something. I do think that the standard for like an Angel Reese, that's an anomaly, right? Not everybody's going to be able to have that marketability, have that star power, have that national championship behind them, have a program that's making sure that they're on top of things. That, I mean, that is one that is just an extreme anomaly. But there are so many pockets to make such large amounts of money and really become your own, and really get a machine behind you to pump that value up. And that could be all across the board. You see, the top is 3 out of 4 of the top athletes in NIL are from LSU. So you got to be strategic about where you're going to school now. If you want to make money outside of your sport, or if you want to really push your branding. So that's something that players need to look at as well. But what my concern is, being the millennial I am, is how to keep the main thing the main thing. But what is the main thing regarding these athletes? Are they gonna lean more into the marketing and branding? Are they gonna lean more into the sport itself? Can they do both? Because it's possible. We see it with Angel, but just managing that and knowing how to stay focused on both ends is going to be interesting to witness going forward. But I think they're more than capable. The future of NIL is, we couldn't have predicted it went like this, so it's unpredictable. But I'm excited for these athletes to be able to really make the money that their schools make off of them.
Exactly. And another big thing that's kind of in conjunction with that, and just having athletes' personalities out there more, is attendance records. We have seen so many attendance records being broken. It is such a big win. I'm not too sure if you've heard yet, but Wisconsin volleyball is about to break a huge record. They are playing a doubleheader Nebraska volleyball. They are playing a doubleheader in their football stadium. Over 84,000 fans are expected to be there. And the current record is at like 18,000. And it was actually their game against Wisconsin. So they're about to hold 2 records. But attendance records, you've seen them on the rise. It's proving that the market is there for women's sports. How has that kind of compared, or I guess progressed throughout the years that you've been in the industry?
It's you can watch the numbers go up. So it's exponential progression. It's halfway in part of visibility and marketability, but another with the game just growing and advancing. Like you see more intense play. I'll compare it to cheerleading, right? So I was a cheerleader my whole life. I cheered from 1995 to 2018. The sport itself has changed and evolved over time. Same way with basketball. If you ask Teresa Weatherspoon how the game has grown over her tenure, she's going to give you explicit examples of how it is way more this, that, and the third. I don't want to speak for her, but way more, the elements are different. And you see that because they're training earlier. We have more accessibility to trainers, to facilities, to these high level programs when we're younger. We believe that we can because we see it on social, we see it on TV. And so you have more elite level athleticism with this. So as you go, and that's no knock to our legends, because our legends paved the way. But this is me speaking as a former athlete and seeing how my sport has grown and progressed. Like, we didn't even have level 6 and 7 when I was, in high school, in doing all-star like that. But now there's a level 6 and 7 for cheerleading, and it just gets more and more advanced. The advancement of the sport, and then the accessibility of the sport, and the general belief that we can. It's just like that UConn story that I told you 10 minutes ago. Like, if you believe you can compete on the highest level and excel there, you're going to compete and excel there. And because they're competing and excelling at the highest level, viewership is up because it's a good game. I mean, it's always been a great game, but now it's digestible to the masses because it's undeniable. And that's where we are with it. And if you make it cool, then people will come too. So it's cool to be in a football stadium cheering on historic programs, cheering on programs that have been doing, like, killing it in volleyball. It's cool to be Auburn gymnastics and see Darian's routine and just rock out with her. It's cool to see Angel Reese in Flauget on the court. It's cool. And it's cool to go to the WNBA and wear your orange hoodie. It's cool. And so when you make it cool, you make it visible, you make the product good, there's no denying it.
That's the thing. And I have a great sense of regard, I guess. Good for the person who came up with the idea, that every single game is sold out. So why don't we put them into a football stadium where we
A
have
concept, make it bigger, a concept.
exactly. And I think that really needs to happen in more places because people are going to come. When you put women's sports in places that they are accessible, people are going to be there. People are going to show up.
That's always been the hesitation, Logan. They're always like, we don't know if we can fill. I'm like, give it a chance to be full. Give it a chance. Like, if you put them at a 3,000 person arena and it's sold out every time, why not try a 15,000 one? If you're so skeptical, open the lower bowl, then open the higher bowl. Like, you know what I mean? It's not rocket science. Like, I think that in women's sports, people try to over strategize it. What I love that Jessica Clarendon, Laysha's wife, and a powerhouse boss says is like, have a budget for men's and women's, put a blindfold on and go accordingly. Like, just you don't have to over strategize it. Just put it out there the same way you would push out a men's sports.
Exactly. And even a great example of that is WNBA in Toronto. Super exciting, but I am so happy that they actually put it into the same arena that the Raptors play at, the Maple Leafs play at. It's the biggest arena that we have, and it sold out in like 9 minutes. And it was so great to see. I really hope we get a team, but that game is going to be really exciting. I'm super excited for it.
Find out soon.
But I do have a question. What is your favorite win of this year, women's sports win?
When I was standing at the vault in the national championship, and Trinity Thomas has been such a joy to watch, but it was so sad. The first, the warm-ups, they have a practice day, and so sad to know that she wasn't gonna do all around. But then she got on that vault and got a 10 and was able to tie the NCAA women's record. I think it was the NCAA record period, but with 28 perfect 10s. And for her to do that on injury in her last go round, I don't think you could have scripted it better. And you see the impact of Trinity. My friend Katiska has this little gymnast. Her daughter's 7 and wears the puffballs just like Trinity, and has the Florida Leo. And just to know she was able to make history like that, despite literally being injured, like her ankle, like I think it was her ankle, it was something in her lower extremity. And for her to choose vault and bars, I mean bars, yeah, but like vault when you're injured like that, and to be able to go out there, leave it all on the floor for her team and stick it, crazy.
That is so insane. And just like having that mindset to go out there and just do anything that you can for your team is so amazing. But you did mention a little girl with puffballs in her hair. I think it's so important that how many things are inspiring the next generation. And the WNBA is so important. That's your quote. How do you think we can continue to inspire the next generation?
Well, I'll tell you a story about the puffballs and then I'll go back to that. When you don't have to just be an athlete to inspire people in sport. The reason why I kept going is in 2018 when Liliana posed in front of the Maya Moore Jordan Brand poster. She went viral. She was 4 years old at the time, and they invited her to the WNBA All-Star game. And when she saw me, she put my media pass around her neck. And then the next day I saw her dad, and her dad was like, all she could say was, Daddy, she has hair just like mine. And so you just never know who you're touching. I know I cried for literally days, but you never know who you're impacting when you're just stepping into these spaces. And so I encourage athletes to be authentically and audaciously themselves, because they're touching someone. They're showing somebody that you can show up as you are, and it's good enough, and it's actually great that you're there. You're needed there. You're necessary in that space. So that's that with the representation. But how can we continue to push the WNBA is so important is consume it, show that there's a demand for it, push the envelope in what you want from it, support the players, don't push negative agendas. It's okay to be critical, but be very mindful of the story or the perception you're putting out, because it can be, you never know who's watching. And if the fans are so disgruntled, you never know what investments could be in jeopardy with that, especially because there's a small pool of us that is very loud. And so I would suggest that be the change you want to see with the women's game. You know, when you started creating, you just did it, right? You just started speaking. I think your first ones were like fashion, right? Like you started speaking about women's sports and you filled a gap. When I first started, I just talked to my friends in the league because like they weren't the major players, but well, outside of Candace, they weren't that major players. And so I was like, their stories matter too. So I found what I wanted to do in women's sports or what I wanted to see in women's sports, and I did it. And so as we're critical of the WNBA, as we're critical of these other women's sports league, and we see something that's lacking, do it yourself because you never know the traction that it's going to gain. You see it with people like us. You see it like with the committee. I love what they're doing. They're disruptive. And so they're making you pay attention to the league. Even if you don't know what's going on, they're giving you a very raw and real way of learning about these players. You have fans who are pushing different conferences that can make you fall in love with the conference. You have media members that are still giving conventional media, which I love. I'm a millennial again. I love long form. I love editorial. There's still space for that. There are other creators that do very like relatable content, like Auntie Nay. She dances. She's a cool auntie, and she's present, and the players love her. There's so much space for different creators in it, and I would say step into that. And then once you find your groove in that, you're adding to the visibility of the game, and that's how we can keep the WNBA and other leagues being so important, is because we contribute ourselves as fans if we have the capacity to do it. And then that way, bigger networks and bigger organizations will know to invest and really put their money towards it.
Yeah, that's why I got started in the first place, because I realized how little I knew, especially as an athlete. I played 3 sports growing up. I was a D1 golfer. And once I sat back, I was like, I didn't even know the WNBA was in season, didn't know NWSL was on. So I was like, I'm going to make a change. And I think that's really important. And I think we do need a lot more people in this space doing the same exact thing. That'd be amazing to see. But we are going to turn it over to the Q&A questions. I think there's
Okay.
one of them is, how do you feel about your personal growth in sports media up until this point?
Oh, hey, Rafiq. I love Rafiq. He has been dedicated to the game, and I think that you are so needed in the space. My personal growth, I still have a lot more to grow. I want to do more linear, long form storytelling. And so that's where I'm putting my mind to. I love that I've created an atmosphere or a space for people to have their story to be told. I've always told myself I marry myself to the mission and not necessarily the platform. So no matter where I go, I'm going to be proud of the legacy that I'm building as I'm going, and I can own that confidently. But I have a lot more to accomplish, a lot more learning to do, a lot more prioritization to implement. But I want to learn how to um, scale up personally, and I'm really proud of what I've done so far, but I'm just getting started.
You have done amazing things. I'm so excited to see. I'm always so excited to see what's next for Ari, because you were the first people I saw when I got into the industry. And
Mhm.
I mean, I think I said it on your birthday. I was like, I want to be like Ari when I grow up, because it's just so
Oh, you're so sweet.
everything that you've been doing and leveling up. But with that, what is something that you would tell your younger self?
It's funny because my younger self was just like me now. I would say you have all the tools. You have all the tools, and continue to be you. Because when I was younger, I'm the only child and only grandchild. So I never really understood when I didn't get my way. And though I would have loved siblings, it's it benefited me so much to not have that, to not have my confidence shaken at a young age, to not have been told that I'm incapable, because I had to be everything, right? I had to be an outstanding student. I had to be an elite athlete. I had to be just all these things for my family because I was the only one. And I inherited that. but just I would maybe tell her to not have so much pressure on yourself and just have more fun with it. I'm sure that when I look back on these years, especially the past 5 years, I'm going to wish I milked it more. I wish I would have enjoyed the journey more instead of, seeing it as a checklist, candidly. But I haven't grown past that yet. I'm literally still in the thick of it, and I still am very goal oriented and like, let me finish this. But younger Ari, keep being completely unapologetically yourself, girl. Keep that same audacity and that same confidence, because it's gonna serve you far. And don't worry about the stress of when you first moved to New York, because that will change quickly. Not quickly, but it will change steeply.
That's so amazing. I bet it's so just like exciting and almost because I feel when I look back, and it's only been like a few years, and I look back, I'm like, oh my goodness, like some of the things that I've done, but also like I never expected to be here. It's such just like an odd and amazing feeling at the same time. So I could not imagine what it's like for you
Yeah,
because
like, Logan, especially with you and other creators that are really booming, this gift was like placed on you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't write this. This was for you before you even thought of it. And so take that how you want, but when a gift is placed on you, and when you're good at it, when you're talented at it, and when you can attract an audience and maintain one, that's not normal, right? And so you're called for this, and sometimes you just have to let the calling take you there. So you know what I mean? Like me, I I'm going to tell everybody out there that like my journey was very, very difficult, because I came into a place where women's sports wasn't popular. Nobody believed in it. I had to do GoFundMe's to get places. And I still, that's why I love UCLA, because Corey Close was one of the first people that were like, she didn't know me, but she just saw me on Twitter and she gave me enough money to get to the Final Four. Same with Pretty Ricky Blue, one of my favorites on Twitter, just gave me money because blind faith in what I was becoming because of my passion. And those of you that don't have the resources, Jamel Hill told me, I think it was 2014, 2015, that the only difference between me and you is access. And so you have to realize like it's gonna be a pretty interesting road to try to get the access that you deserve. But at the same time, don't let it deter you if you're broke. I was living off 3 for $1 bananas, and my friend Ellie, she's a supermodel at the time. She bought me a bed. Like I didn't have all these things, but because people believed in me, because my tribe was strong, I was able to get to where I needed to be, and I was able to lean into that calling. Now we have social media that can really, really pop you off if you do it the right way, and so you don't necessarily have to um, break yourself for this. But if you have that calling, if it was placed on your heart, it was already written for you. So just go ahead and ride that out.